أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, brother, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Ammar Qadan. I'm from the Palestinian city of Tulkarm, which is in the northern West Bank. I've been here in the US since 2008, but I left Palestine in 1985 to study. And I had an international career, but ended up in San Diego in 2014. So I've been living here in San Diego for more than 10 years. And I'm husband and the father of two kids, a boy, 26, and a girl, 22.
My name is Mahmoud, and I born and raised in Nablus. It's a city in the West Bank, but I'm originally from Tel Aviv, what's called Tel Aviv now, my ancestor or my grandparents. But I born and raised in the West Bank in the city of Nablus.
Well, thank you for having me. I actually grew up in Southern California in the city called South Whittier, at the outskirts of LA. It's sort of on the border between LA County and Orange County.
Yeah.
And I basically spent my entire childhood there. I lived in that region between Norwalk and South Whittier from 1991 till about 2002. So about 11 years of living in
Yeah.
that region. And in that period, my parents are both Palestinian. Both my dad was born in Gaza. My mom was born in Jordan. And because Gaza was so inaccessible to us, most of the time we would visit family in Jordan. And so going to Palestine was a rarity for us, and it only occurred on one occasion when I was a child, where my dad in 1996 took us on a visit to Palestine, and I was about 7 years old at that time.
So my name is Arwa Al-Khawaja, and originally I'm from Palestine. My father is from, it's called Al-Dhihiriya, which is like when we say I'm from the borderline of the 1948. My mother is from Safad, which is a city is from the northern part of Palestine. So my mother's side had, of course, since they are in the north, to leave Palestine in the year 1948. So they first went to Syria, and they settled in Damascus, but they moved to Jordan, married to my mother, and then he worked there. They were so young, both of them. So he was 20, my mom was 18 when they got married, and they just moved and stayed in Saudi Arabia, and that's where I grew up.
Subhanallah. So brother, so you mentioned that you live in Palestine for a bit. Can you tell us about your childhood and early years living in Palestine, and what was it like?
Yeah, so I lived in Palestine between 1968 and 1985, which is basically my childhood and school years. And I think that's basically the period after the occupation of the West Bank in 1967. So I was raised during the time when the occupation of the West Bank was just fresh. And so people had to basically think about how they want to live with the occupation at the time. I came from a family in 1967 whom their house was demolished. I'm so sorry. It's okay. So I came from a family whom their house was demolished in 1967 when Tulkarm was occupied. And we were refugees for a while in Jordan before coming back almost a year later to Tulkarm. And so the rubble of our house was fresh in my memory. I could, I could still see it. And that was a reality. For me, I was a growing kid, but for my family, the occupation and the house demolition was just fresh in their mind. We came from, or I come from a very middle class family with a father who is a teacher and a mother who is a housewife. And then I'm the youngest of my siblings who are all great achievers, I would say, whether it is education or life or anything else. And so the childhood years for any Palestinian probably who lived in Palestine, whether before the 1967 occupation or after that, is centered around usually the neighborhood you live in. And in the Arabic language or in the common term in Palestine, this is called al-Hara. That's basically your community. The neighbors, the people that you grew up with, your friends, early friends. And the other piece also of that early childhood is the school, going to school, especially elementary school, and walking to school, coming back from school. And the reason why I'm saying that these are the two probably pieces that make the majority of your childhood is that you spend your life either in school, or after school you spend your time playing in your neighborhood at Al-Hara. And those, I would say, our house is still there, where I grew up, and all the people I grew up with are, most of them, they still live there. And the friends from the even elementary school, some of them are here in the US. And so I wouldn't say that the early life, my childhood was different than any Palestinian. And I wouldn't say that, and I'll speak to that in a minute, that for an early childhood, our experience at the time, I wouldn't say that the occupation, we felt it that much in our daily lives, which has changed significantly, especially after the first Intifada. And so, yeah, that's basically my early childhood.
I born and raised there, and I finished my high school from Nablus, and in that time we have multiple event or multiple called the uprising, the Intifada, which happened in my childhood, in my teenager, and in that time we really suffered a lot from our education, from our even going out of the house. They used to call it something called curfew, but curfew is not like you cannot leave after midnight or something. Curfew is like you cannot even open the window and look from the window. You'll be shot dead only opening the window. In that time, we barely study, almost home study to get our high school diploma from there. And in that time, we have multiple event. We can talk about it. That's I have multiple friends who got really killed by the soldiers in my teenager for not just disobeying the curfew, basically. Which is like when you're talking about curfew, you used to sometimes to extend to 30 days. You're not allowed to get out of the house for 30 days. So
I see, subhanallah. And if I may, a kind of like a follow-up to that, right? How long did you actually live in Palestine?
I lived until age 18 for the first time when I finished my high school. 18 years when I finished my high school. After that, I went to Jordan and I studied computer science engineering. After I finished my computer science engineering, I went back as my dad requested to go back to Palestine, and the second Intifada started. I opened a center for computer education in the middle of my city. Unfortunately, after 2 months later, the occupation forces came to the city and destroy everything, destroy all the building and the offices, and basically I have no business or no center to do. And I was in that time 22, and I decided to go and do my third degree in the United States, and that's when I left Palestine when I was 22.
We went from Jordan, we crossed the bridge, we went into Palestine, we spent time in Al-Quds, we went to different parts of historic Palestine like Jaffa and Haifa, and then we ended our trip in Gaza where we went to see the family that we had talked about a lot, but we had never met. And so
Yeah.
96 was my first experience in Palestine, and I was 7 years old. And we had a beautiful time there. I mean, it was, before the siege was laid on Gaza, before all that stuff. So, you could at that time technically take a car from anywhere and drive to Gaza. Of course, you would have to have a permit to enter, and you would have to go through the Israeli checkpoints. My dad, although he was born in Gaza,
Yeah.
I remember vividly having to wait for him at the Erez crossing in North Gaza for several hours as the Israelis interrogated him. And I
Yeah.
remember even the taxi driver just waiting for us for hours and hours and hours, just as my dad was basically going to be denied entry to his own place of birth, which was the first time I had that type of experience.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it was the summer. We went to the beach. We swam in Gaza's waters. We ate from
Wow.
Gaza's fish. We played with our relatives and cousins. We visited my dad's aunts who all lived in Gaza at the time, and it was a wonderful experience. I mean, it was probably I was young, but I have memories from that moment. I remember driving at night, with the windows down, right on along the ocean line, with my dad's relative, and going to visit some of his aunts and their houses, spending the night at their house, and I mean, it was a totally normal sort of diasporic uh, kids experience to go visit
Right.
family overseas, not knowing at that time, of course, that all of these places that we came to love would be erased.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so
like,
yeah, that was the only time that I visited Palestine as a child. Um,
And then what was the time that you got to visit, like the next time after that?
yeah, the only time after that I went to visit Palestine was in 2009 when I went on a humanitarian aid convoy to Gaza. Um, Actually, some of your UCSD OGs went on that trip with me. If you guys know Saramat Bukhari, who was one of the original people who actually created that wall that you guys put up on campus today. Um,
That's
he
so
was
cool.
he was at MSA UCSD. He used to organize the JIP week back in 2009, 10, 11 when I was on campus. And he went with me to Gaza. We went as part of a group of about 200 Americans who left in the summer of 2009 to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza and to break the siege on Gaza in the aftermath of at that time, the most vicious assault on Gaza, which was 2008, 2009 Operation Cast Lead, which led to the murder of 1,400 people in the span of 3 weeks. So, that was my other time entering, but we went through Egypt and I didn't go to the rest of Palestine. We just went to Gaza and came back.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the last time I would ever enter Gaza in 2009. So
So
it's been
what
more
was,
than 15 years, 16 years now.
yeah, was there, or how different did you see that experience versus the experience when you were 7 years old?
I mean, I had, you know, memories of Gaza as a child, and now I was coming back as not only as someone who I guess you could say I was coming back as an activist, as someone who was kind of representing my family, not just as a kid just going with my family. I
Right.
remember going to Gaza in 2009 and being greeted by a relative who thought that I was my dad. And he's like,
No
how could you
way.
not tell me you're coming and this and that, and it wasn't up to me. Like I didn't really have a choice. Like I didn't have control over the itinerary. They kind
Yeah.
of the delegation organizers controlled where we were able to go and what we were able to do.
Yeah.
Um, and and because it was a sensitive political situation, I mean, the Egyptian government was putting a lot of restrictions on us. They didn't want us to get into Gaza. I mean, Egypt's been maintaining the siege on Gaza for almost 2 decades now, so they've been active in that regard. But yeah, so I went and I saw family members that I had seen before, but I just didn't remember. I just didn't really
Yeah.
remember them. I remember we went over to my dad's aunt on his father's side, Amto, and we went to her house, and all her children were there, and they were all older than me. I mean, they were like my dad. Some of them were my
Yeah.
dad's age, some of them were a
Yeah.
little bit younger. But we were sitting there and we're eating, the Gaza fish dinner that was very common at the time
Yeah.
to eat, and I just got to reconnect with so many family members. I got to also see Gaza as a mature sort of adult, in ways that I didn't really see before. I mean, to grasp
Yeah.
the severity of the situation was at that time, which at that time I believed was already unlivable. I mean, it was just not sustainable to keep human beings in some sort of situation. And this was in 2009.
Yeah.
Um, and so the level. I mean, one of my dad's cousins, he works in psychology and therapy, and he was telling me like everybody in in Gaza needs serious help, especially the children. I mean, the children need serious help, and that was at that time. I mean, it was
Yeah.
we hadn't dealt with anything as severe as this genocide, of course.
First, I want to start like that. It was a struggle inside of me to go there and visit. And I was like, how can I go and visit my homeland? And I'm still seeking permission to visit. But of course, I took the step. My son, my daughter were with me. And then, like, my son, especially, is like, he visited first before us. It's like, Mama, you should go. You must go. The feeling is different when you go, like, to our hometown village, when you see where my father was born, and like, it's different. So the truth is, and now I'm reliving it, is like when we crossed the border, crossing the border by itself was a different story. Maybe another honestly interview. It's just like crossing the border. And then what they like the humiliation, what like they let the people go through. But we crossed the border. Now, when you like are on the other side, you are inside of Palestine. It's like the feeling at that moment is like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm just breathing the air of Palestine. Just like that was such a beautiful thing. And then the taxi people, like the drivers, and I'm like, oh, like they were telling us, which city do you want to go to? I was like, oh my God. It's like, so that was by itself such an amazing feeling. Of course, the plan was to go, the first thing is to Jerusalem. We wanted to go to Al-Aqsa. So of course we take the cab and they let us know, like, of course, as Americans, like this is where you can go, and other people cannot take that route and so on, which is as an American visiting there. But Palestinian, of course, right? But that's like how the title is. So when we took it was like kind of the shuttle or something like that. The funny thing is when I reached, I'm still kind of in that mentality that I just like, oh, the Jerusalem or Al-Aqsa is still a distant thing from me. So now we are approaching, like we're about to enter Jerusalem. Of course, there's a checkpoint. Now you have to go through the checkpoint. The funny thing, which is the sad thing, the soldiers who will come step inside, like kind of, it was a small kind of minibus. They will step inside the bus. Like they're 18, 19 years old, but you still look at me and I'm like, I'm not 19, 18 years old, right? But still, like you're still subject to their decision, and then you have to show them your passport, you have to show them your visa, and so on. So it's like, but of course, we were told just calmly show them your papers, show them, like, don't argue, whatever they ask you, just show them your documentation. Luckily, and alhamdulillah, that was a peaceful interaction, the truth. So they just checked us, like the documents, they looked at us, I'm like, okay, you may proceed. Now, the funny thing, and a sad thing I see, but it's funny, like when we entered Jerusalem, my son, I was like looking at the side, like, my God, the nature is so beautiful, the trees. So, and I was like, my son is like, Mama, look to your left. And I look and I see Al-Aqsa. And I'm like, oh my God. And I started to take pictures. It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, take a picture, take a picture. It's like you're going there. So in my mind, take a picture because we lose the chance of seeing it. So that was like still kind of, and of course I started crying. The truth, like Al-Aqsa, really? I'm there where all these prophets have walked. And anyway, so that was amazing. So that was like the feeling when you go there the first time. It's like, yeah, we're going there. And then, of course, like we went to our hotel, and now we wanted to go and pray in Al-Aqsa. So now that I want you to know, is like Al-Aqsa is like kind of, apparently there are neighborhoods around it. Like they would say, this is how it's divided. Like, so there is one neighborhood. It's like where like you see the Muslims are there. So there are like next to it, there's a neighborhood where the Christians, like their shops and everything, and which leads also the church of the Nativity, like and it's like if I mentioned the name of the church, right? But it's like we're, like for the Christians, right? So, and then there's a neighborhood for the Jews. They told us, this is where you be careful. You don't go there. This is how they call it. It's not like kind of, so, okay. So, but in there is shops, and you have to walk through. It's like beautiful, like when we say the old Jerusalem, really the old Jerusalem. Now, one of the encounters that I cannot forget for life. Yes, we went that first time. We prayed in Jerusalem, of course, and they were like, when I'm telling you, checkpoints, like the soldiers, 11, 10, like they're in groups. But in the same night, in the evening, we arrived around like 2 p.m., something like that. But we wanted to go pray Maghrib. So we were rushing, my son, my daughter, and I, we were rushing to go to Salatul Maghrib. Now we were just going, and then we went prayed in the like around 2. It was fine, but at Maghrib time there was like a group of soldiers there. We passed the first group, no one looked at us. The second group, which is by the gate, by the door, for you to be able to enter. And then my son, he was wearing just a backpack, and then and just walking fast ahead of us, me and my daughter. And then suddenly, like a soldier, very rudely, he's like stopped him, like, whoa, 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 where do you think you're going? And then my son told him, like, I'm just going to pray. And then he said, where are you from? And then my son, like, he was just like, okay, I'm American. And then he said, show me your passport. And luckily, usually, like, I don't know, like I had like the passports of him, my daughter, and mine. So, and then my son, he's like, so I told my son, oh, okay, I have your passport here. And then my son, he said, like, Mama, you and my sister just go. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. Like, what's happening? Like, this is scary for me. I've never dealt with this before, honestly. And then, of course, when you hear the stories and you see things, it's like, my God, what is going to happen? Why is he talking to him this way? And we were just minding on our own business. So and then he looked at the passport and is like, where are you born? And it's like, oh my God. It's like, no, sorry, where is your father born? And then it's like, okay. And my husband is born in Jerusalem. And then he's like, he's born here. And then the conversation was like started to escalate. And then when this happens, how? Like the soldier, he was like, my son was smiling, and he's like, come on, man, we're running late for the prayer. Here in the US, you could say that. It's normal, right? But he said, like, come on, man, I'm going to the prayer. We're late. Just let us go. We're going to pray. And then as if this, like really frustrated that soldier. He started saying, like, he in a way physically was approaching my son, is like, oh my God, what is going to happen? And then my daughter is like, she was getting near her brother. She was like worried. And it's like, to me, like, go back, like, and I was telling my son, just let go, don't argue. Just like, and he was like, Mama, I'm not arguing. I'm just telling him, in my mind, is like, just don't say anything. Okay, take back your passport. Let's go. And then the other group of soldiers started approaching us. It's like, so now and to me, like, oh my God, like, what is gonna happen? That was my son, my daughter is next to me. Like, is gonna something happen to them both? And then I have no idea. One of the soldiers, like in the back, he just looked at this one and like, come on, man, let them go. So it's like, it's one of them. So he just holds this passport and he just like, don't act like funny next time. And he just like passes the passport, like really in a rude way to my son. Out of no point, out of no reason or something like that. Is like, why was he even talking to him? No, part of the conversation, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. And it's like, who are these two? To my son. He's like, my mom and my daughter. Look at that. Like, that's like, they don't listen to what you say. It's just like they want to look for a problem. And it's like, he said, my mom and my daughter, my sister, I'm sorry. And then he said, oh, how are they related to you? And it's like, my mom and my sister. And just like, you see this, like he just looks for a reason to just argue with my son. That was not, and I feel like at that moment, oh my God, like I see these women, they're so brave. Maybe I was not that brave. And I was like, oh, but the truth is that was a shock to me. First, I was never ever exposed to this experience. And it was hard. And then when we went in there, it's like I was still like kind of the whole thing. But what I would just like to make this story short is like I met a lady, and then the lady, she was like, "Oh, where are you from?" Like apparently, like it was summer, and a lot of people are coming back to visit. And she lives in Norway, and she's like, "Yo, I come here and I visit every time." And she's like, "Oh," I told her, "Nice, you come a lot." And she's like, "Yeah, I even came last Ramadan. The time when we visit last Ramadan, you know, every Ramadan they attack really the people in the Aqsa. They block the people from going to the masjid." And she said, "I was there and my son was there." It's like, oh my God, like must have been very scary to you. And she's like, you know, it was. But look what she told me. And that's again, I listen a lesson, I like to see it like from the people. And she's like, no. But I said to myself, she was saying, yes, it is scary. And I see like they were shooting inside the Al-Aqsa, but my son is like the other sons in this kind of community. So we're all going to be okay. And then to me, it's like, my God, that is true. Like, we are like the other people, like we're like one of them. So it just like whatever happens to them happens to us. And it's like, of course, we're not choosing that, but whatever, we have to defend ourselves. The same day when we was like going back, is like, you know, there's shops. Oh no, not sorry, not the same. The next day, like we were again because our hotel was in the area, and then we were in the shops, and then a man. I was looking. I wanted to buy some stuff. He was like, he works there. That's when you see the resilience. A man was like there. He's like, oh, and he, you know, he invites us like, oh, what do you want to buy, and so on. And then, and he's like, where are you from? And I was like, how did you know? It's like, we're just visitors. I'm wearing my hijab. My daughter, they just know. They know the people who are there and the people who visit. So we said like, yeah, we're Americans and but originally Palestinians and so on. And then he said, listen, and he was talking to me like he's an elderly man, and he's like, I'll give you an advice. And I was like, yeah, please. And he said, this land, the knees of the prophets have touched it. They all kneeled before God and they prayed there. So there is a barakah, there is a blessing in this land. So when you come to Al-Aqsa, one dua you have to make for Allah to give you the barakah. And you will give a barakah in everything, in your life, in your children, and in money, in everything. And you will be able, like when you say the kind of, in a way to live, like to survive what you're going through because you have the barakah of the iman inside of you. It's like you would not be bothered. Not bothered, I don't know how to describe it, how he said it. It was so beautiful. It's like you will survive successfully. And then this made me look, and I was looking around. Of course, there's a lot of like people, the settlers, the soldiers, settlers with rifles, walking, moving. And I really, subhanAllah, when he said that, I started looking around. Young children, they're just running around, they're playing, they don't care about like these soldiers, like they're happy. And then at some point they stop. It's like, hey, you're in my way. It's like, my God, it's like the little kid, and it's like they're just tough. So I believe that life prepared them to be that strong. Like they've been tested, and yes, they are strong. And the truth is that resilience brought me back. This is a life-changing, I would say, experience. I was like, wow. It's like, yes, we know we hear, but it's different when you live it. It's like, yes, we all can survive any test. We all can survive any exam that we do go through, that Allah makes us go through with a smile, because everybody was there smiling, generous, by the way. And if you want to like buy something, like they offer you like the people, the sellers, the merchants, they offer you for free. It's like, take it. And it's like, oh my God, no. It's like, what do you mean? And like, so it's just a lot of stories, by the way. Like we visited Hakka, but that incident especially, I believe it just changed something inside of me. And it's like, and even when I look now to the women, when the mothers, then like when their children, they're like, oh my God, I know how they feel, but it's like, I know they're like, to me, giants. It's like kind of how they are living this day-to-day life. But their resilience, by the way, I believe it's very contagious, and it's just really highly respectful. And yeah, many stories, but that comes to my mind always, subhanallah.
How has the military presence affected your community? Are there particularly moments or encounters that kind of like stand out to you? Do you have like any significant like events that you can remember of memories during the occupation?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, as I said, in my early childhood, it was the time just after the occupation of the West Bank. And our city, Tulkarm, was part of that. So the early years, I would say, people were either absorbing the shock or they were in complete denial that this has happened. Because it meant also the loss of Al-Quds, Jerusalem, in 1967, which was very painful, of course. And so there was that sense of either a shock or denial. And I think this started to change with some events that were taking shape either outside Palestine or within Palestine. One of the things that started shaping that daily life was really the, believe it or not, start of the Lebanese war, the civil war in Lebanon, because the Palestinian Liberation Organization was part of that, and it has impacted Palestinians significantly, and this was 1975. So you could see that tension rising. And then in 1976, there were two major events that happened that shaped also the climate and the tension within that climate. The first one was end of March of 1976, which is what is today widely, broadly known as the Land Day, Yom al-Ard, which is 30th of March. And in 1976, Palestinians inside the 1948 Palestine, they rised up against the occupation because of land confiscation. And remember, those are considered as Israeli citizens at the time, and they are still Israeli citizens. And so there were few of them who were martyred, and then that has spread quickly into the West Bank and other parts of Palestine. And so there were many demonstrations during that time that I remember very well. And during that time, a martyr called Lina Nabulsi in the city of Nablus was martyred. She was a high school student, and today, and probably most of the younger generation as well, they hear a song by well-known Lebanese singer, very committed to the cause. His name is Ahmad Qabour, that talks about Lina, the kid who was basically building her future. Lina كانت طفلة تصنع ولدها. These are the Arabic words. She was martyred during that time, basically, and during those events. The second event was in 1976. It was towards the end of the summer of 1976, when the Tel Zatar massacre took place in Lebanon. And those were Palestinian refugees who were massacred by right-wing militias that in Lebanon that were supported, unfortunately, at the time by the Assad regime. And that has resulted also in significant tensions that led to a curfew imposed by the Israelis on our city. So that was the first curfew I was aware of. And during that curfew, I remember that Israeli snipers were targeting water tanks on top of the houses, just causing damage. In terms of water was scarce, there was no regular water, and then you lose the tank on top of your house. And so I remember all of those things. And I remember the remains of those bullets on our, whether it is on our roof or even in the streets. There were so many events that accelerated towards the end of the 70s, especially with the Lebanese civil war and the invasion of Lebanon. And the most important, I would say, and the most significant was the invasion of Lebanon in 1982 by Israel. And that caused significant tensions and demonstrations in Tulkarem and in the West Bank and Palestine as a whole. And it was really during the summer of 1982. I remember that was a very tough summer, really, for everybody. And on the other hand, during that summer, I remember very well that Palestinians also took the opportunity to celebrate because during the World Cup, Algeria was able to beat Germany. And so Palestinians went, I remember it very well, like during the invasion of Lebanon, everybody was, it was a tough situation for them, but everybody went to the streets to celebrate the winning of Algeria over Germany. And the Algerians who live in San Diego community and all the Algerians, they remember that moment. It was very significant. Actually, when the Italians won the World Cup in 1982, they gifted the World Cup to the Palestinians during that time. It's still something I remember very well. And towards the end of that summer, which is September 1982, when Palestinians left Lebanon, the PLO, the massacre of Sabra and Shatila took place in Lebanon. And I remember those scenes on the TV as well. The same year was my first my first day detention. Happened just after the events of the Land Day. I was shy of 14 years old, and yet I was in daily detention for 2 days by the Israelis. I wouldn't say that I was subjected to any torture or whatever, but it was a painful experience, traumatic experience for someone who's not even turned 14 to be in daily detention with Israeli military. And so, as I mentioned, those events, they shape the lives of Palestinians generally. But I remember all of those things, especially as I mentioned, 1982, and everybody was really sitting next to their radios to hear the news coming from Lebanon, to listen to the news coming from Lebanon. And there was probably one very popular radio station that was broadcasting out of Monte Carlo in France, called Radio Monte Carlo, with many Lebanese who worked in that station. And that was the station that the Palestinians used in the West Bank and everywhere else, actually, in Palestine, to get a glimpse of what was going on in Lebanon.
Yeah, I want to go back, honestly, very quickly. I mean, it's since the occupation started in 1948, because my ancestor and my grandparents are from Tel Aviv, from what you will call now Israel, 1948, and that's when they have been expelled and kicked out of their town in 1948, and in that time, 2 of my uncles got shot just running away from the village or from the town in the middle of the night, and my grandparents, both of them, got killed. And my dad was in that time was only 8 years old, and his sibling in the same age, 6, 7, and my grandfather, he was in his almost 30 years when they ran away from 1948, which is called Tel Aviv now, to go to the West Bank and 2 weeks later, they tried to go back to look for their dead one, for loved one, just to bury them. They couldn't find them. And that would be my first losses. Move on in our childhood. As I said, it's the occupation is brutal. It's very hard on everybody, and we're growing with the occupation. You cannot even move from any place to any place, and if there is a curfew or there's no curfew, I mean, they come. I mean, they come. The soldier come anytime, and you can be arrested for no reason. It's just being in the street, or they're thought that you are throwing rocks or stones or nothing, or just so. That's the childhood that we grow up, and in my teenager. One time they opened the curfew for 2 hours, and we have to go out and get grocery and get whatever we need for in 2 hours. After like 3 weeks of curfew, full curfew, we cannot even get out of in the ceiling of your house or in the window. So we went out, and I have a bunch of friends of mine. One of them is a little bit older than me, and all of a sudden they enforce back the curfew, and we start running, and we hide behind like big rock. I mean, like just like like she was to hide from the bullet, like flying live bullet. I'm not talking about tear gas and as I said, it's just the occupation who have the weapons. We have nothing. I'm like we're just running away. And unfortunately, my friend got shot in the head and died in front of me. So that was very traumatic. I was 16 years old in that time, so in Nablus.
Subhanallah. Especially when it's one thing seeing all of these things happening. It's one thing hearing them from interviews online, but it's another thing actually listening into it in person. And I assume this is a common story, right? From like for every single Palestinians that have ever lived under occupation.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is no family, and there is no member in family, any family, except like lost someone, like got murdered or went in jail or got injured. So there is no such family in Palestine, and they suffer from the occupation in a way or another. Later on, I was an American. I have my kids, and we have something that's to keep my kids carrying both citizenship, American and Palestinian. They need to be 5 years old to go there. If they are older, they will not. So I took my kids when they are 4 and 5, and I took them to Palestine so they can see my family. And we were crossing the border there. The soldier on the border telling me, why you are bringing your kids here? They are American. Why you want to bring them here? I said, they want to be Palestinian too, so they want to carry both citizenship. He said, why you want them to be a terrorist? Just keep them be like come as a tourism, not as a terrorist like the other. And I said, that's not it. We are under occupation, and one day the occupation will end. And one of the stories, just quickly, and that time, my kids are little, maybe they don't remember it. That's crossing the border between Jordan and Palestine it's a horrible experience. It's only 60 miles and should take 60 minutes to cross, but sometimes take 2 days, honestly, because they can close the border anytime, and you're stuck. You cannot go back to Jordan. You cannot cross to Palestine. And I remember we sat in the bus for 6 hours. And it was hot like hell, because it's like that area is like the valley, the Jordan River Valley, which is very hot, very humid. Sitting in the bus, no AC for 6 hours. We just get out of the window of the bus just to get some fresh air, and the soldier shot at the tire of the bus, exploding the tire of the bus, making everybody freak out, thought that something is happening, or it's something happening. But this is one of the things in the checkpoint or in the crossing that's happening. To go back in one of event that's I remember in that time, my dad, he was 60, 63, 65, and he said that it's too much for him, the noise between the grandchildren, so he decided to go to his own apartment where he have peace, so he can sit and stay that night. So in that night where he was staying, there was some kind of military activity from the occupation. His hearing is not good, so he was asleep. It was 2 a.m. They knocked the door for him. He did not open because he did not hear the knocking. To make the story short, they were looking for somebody in that building, but not for my dad. My dad is 65. It's not like they're not looking for him. So they explored the door of the apartment, and when he wake up, there are 6 soldiers on the top of his bed. Asked him to get out of bed. He got out of bed. He was confused. They handcuff him. They blindfold him, and in his pajama, without any paperwork, took him to a tank. When he was entering the tank, and that's my dad, was 65 years old, he worked with the United Nations for 4 years. He's a United Nations employee. So he's supposed to be protected by the United Nations. He was like a manager with the United Nations, taking care with the refugee in the West Bank. So as soon as he's entering the tank, because he's folded, his eyes he cannot see, he left his head up. Unfortunately, his head hit the top of the tank, opened his head wide, and the blood was gushing from his head. Now they want to take him to a center for processing or whatever they want to call it, but unfortunately they took him to a hospital because he was bleeding so bad. When he get to the hospital, the doctor in the hospital telling the soldier, he's like an old guy, he's 65 years old. Why you want this guy here? They said we took him by mistake, but we already took him. And my dad understand Hebrew, so it was like that's why like they were speaking Hebrew. But my dad, he have master degree in Hebrew. He was studying in Damascus, so he's educated and he know Hebrew. So the doctor told the soldier, I advise you guys to go and release him because you are like he got hit in the head and this is very bad and he's 65 and you took him by mistake, so just release him. So. And for 48 hours, we did not know where my dad is. We know that he had been taken, but where he's taken and where he's staying and where he is, what his condition, we have no idea. For 48 hours, the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, we contact everybody to see where he is. Well, like he's like an old guy. He's retired, 65 years old. He's not a young guy. After 48 hours, they took him to a checkpoint, release him. No paperwork, no phone, no document, no money. He's in his pajama, and he was confused as hell. Instead of crossing the border or crossing the checkpoint towards Nablus, my city, he went backward. And he was like there for like 2-3 hours in the middle of the night. In the end, he knocked one of the doors of the Palestinian in that village next to the checkpoint, and they said, can you guys call my family? I have been taken by mistake, and they released me, and I'm injured, and I cannot go home. So they called us at 2 a.m., and that's when we went and picked him up. Unfortunately, that's hit to the head, we believe, 3 months later. My dad, he never have heart issue, he never have health issue, he was healthy. 3 months later, my dad died of stroke, and the doctor who did the autopsy, he said it's most likely from the hit in the head when they took him in the tank by mistake. That did the clotting, and with the time moved to a brain and did the clotting, and that was my dad passing away from previous injury. So.
Subhanallah. Inshallah, brother. Moving on to the next question, right? How has the military presence within Israel affected your community? And I mean this not just, within the larger Palestinian community, your friends and the people around you, and also after you came to America. What has the experience been?
I mean, being the occupation, being there, basically there is no life, there is no economic, there is no education, there is no future at all because everything is controlled by the occupation. I mean, you cannot do anything. You cannot process anything. You cannot leave. You cannot open a business. You cannot even register your kids as a residents in Palestine without the occupation giving the approval for that. So that's because the occupation is control everything in our life, in every aspect of life, education, moving from place to place, getting out of the country, getting to get. I mean, the education is destroyed, the economy is destroyed. We have basically in Palestine under the occupation, basically we have no access to the sea, we don't have access to the flight, we don't have access to the land, everything is occupied, everything is controlled. So after, as I said, now coming to America, thank God I came to America. I have a very good opportunity here. It's the life of the, what they call it, it's a freedom here, thanks God. I mean, that's why I told my dad I have to leave. I cannot stay there because there is no future, and I cannot stay under this kind of occupation, and it's very oppressing and depressing, and I have to get out because I have no future there. So I lived there, and I am a citizen. I become a citizen, but honestly, for 30 years, I'm not allowed to fly to Palestine to go to through Israel, because even I'm an American citizen, and every single American citizen in the world allowed to go to Palestine through the international airport, but because of our heritage, of our background as a Palestinian, we're not allowed to do so, unfortunately.
I was really proud to be part of the first West Bank league, which is the called at the time classification or classifying league, whereby Northern West Bank and Southern West Bank, they decided to join forces, and they did a tournament whereby they classified then clubs into Premier League, Second League, Third League. So I was part of that, and our club in Tulkarem, we had two clubs in Tulkarem. One of them is the refugee camp of Tulkarem soccer club. And probably for those people who are watching the news today, the refugee camp of Tulkarem is in the news all the time over the past 3 months, with the continuous destruction of the refugee camp. So, and that refugee camp had one of the best soccer teams in Palestine. And one thing also for people to know is that that refugee camp has also the largest Afro-Palestinian community. So when you play, I played for the other club of Tulkarem, and we were both in the Premier League, and so the rivalry of Tulkarem when the refugee camp played against the city was really something like Liverpool playing with Man United or Everton, or it was a big match that got a lot of attention. I was part of that classifying league. I was a soccer player while at school, and then I was also part of the first Premier League after that, and the Cup. And so that organizing is a form of resistance. The fact that they were able to organize despite the occupation, moving from one city to the other. And I remember a lot of times the match was canceled because of the demonstrations of the events, because of a curfew. It happened all the time. And we used to stop on checkpoints. And one of the funny things I would mention, which is surreal in a way, is that our matches in Tulkarem used to attract probably 6,000-7,000 people. And we used to play in playgrounds that are dirt. It was not really turf or anything else. And outside the stadium or the playground, there was an elevated area where the Israeli military jeeps used to gather to watch the match. And there was like a gentleman agreement between the spectators and the army of not doing anything against each other. Till the match ends, everybody goes home, it's okay. And so it was surreal. Like you see those situations whereby the occupying army was watching the match because it was a good match. And so organizing is a form of resistance. So that's especially when it comes to soccer. And today, as we know, that there is a Palestinian club in Chile called Palestinos. And their jerseys, they have the Palestinian flag. They carry the Palestinian flag and the map of Palestine as well. So yes, soccer is a form of resistance, whether it is in Palestine or outside Palestine for the Palestinians. But I would also perhaps mention two things about resistance in general. One is how people resisted, big or small. So when I was in daily detention for 2 days, I missed my math exam. I was in the middle school. I missed my math exam. And so when I came back to the school, there was the math class, and the math teacher approached me with a small piece of paper, written on it a question I need to make up for the exam. And that was one question that has the simplest equation that you could see in your life, something like x plus 1 equals 2. What's x? And I looked at that, and he said, you need just to solve it. That's your exam. And I realized that this is a form of resistance. He was resisting by showing solidarity in the best way possible. And I told that story to his son probably 30 or 40 years later, and that math teacher passed away. But that's how people basically were resisting by supporting each other, as an example. The other form of resistance is really, which is the other extreme, when you lose someone whom you know as a martyr or whatever. And the club I played for in Tulkarem called Nadi Thaqafi Tulkarem, or Tulkarem Cultural Club. That's the word-to-word translation, but it has a soccer team. Major focus was soccer team. One of the players I played with closely, he was a defender. During the first Intifada, there was a curfew in the refugee camp. He lived in the refugee camp. He had kids, and they ran out of milk, and he went outside the camp to get some milk. On his way back to the camp, he was shot in his stomach. He was left to bleed while his hands were tied, and he was left to die. And so he was really the first martyr of our club at the time. His name is Ahmed Wasbil. He's an Afro-Palestinian. And later on, there were also other martyrs from the same club who either were targeted directly or were targeted by snipers without knowing who they are. And so that's, again, the fact that you are there is a form of resistance, and you could be paying your life for something that you have nothing to do with.
Regarding the current climate, with Trump actively forcing and limiting student movement and not allowing us to speak out for Palestine, and like threats of deportation and other things happening, what do you think would be next for the student movement?
That's such an important question. First, like number one, when we say like how you are in the airplane, that's a lesson we always take in life. So usually when they tell you the first instructions when you travel, if you need the like the mask for the air, is like you help yourself, then you'll be able to help others. So make sure first. Why am I saying that? That when any plan that you do, anything you want to say, anything you want to join, make sure it is very well planned and it's legally okay. So like make sure everything is right. Like don't risk even anything outside of like kind of the legal borders, right? It's like kind of what we say, the activities, the permissions that we take, so everything. So that's number one. Make sure we are breaking the law. And then I would say always make sure that to stay connected to any law firm that will help. There's a lot of groups, like we say, Muslim Legal for Palestine, so they will help. Tons of attorneys that they will give you consultation to let you know, like your even legal rights. What can you do? What you should not do or cannot do. So. So that's like, and it's like stay informed, stay educated about your rights, and then again the law. So you do not want to break it. Now, subhanAllah, first let's all remember that's throughout the history, and Allah had told us that in the Quran and in the Sunnah. There is no tyranny, there is no oppression that could last forever. It's like eventually, subhanAllah, this will collapse, like this tyranny, this whole thing, this oppression is going to stop. It's just we do our part. And then when we do our part, we do it in a ways like, subhanAllah, we look at strategically the surroundings. So if there are, like, it's okay to adjust the strategy, adjust even some wording, some things that I want to say for me to be able to continue doing the work that I'm doing. So it's like, that's when I say, like, change the words sometimes, like still talk about the same topic, because remember what they are, the people like who are fighting this, like the truth, they're scared from the truth. All what they do not want is the truth to be seen, right? So it just like, maybe now I would focus maybe in events, in things that I will talk about, or even talking to my Muslim, like a student fellow or something. Focus, for example, on children, how many children got killed, and how like this should be like never ever accepted in any case, in any war, in any humanity, in any race, right? So you could focus on certain topics that no one could disagree over. So it just like children is number one. Now, so that's when you're talking, like choose the topic. That's what I'm saying. And then, subhanAllah, when you organize events, that's again, I go back to the first point. Make sure you are doing everything legal. You are doing it like in the right way. And then when I would say like kind of, that's when we say legally, it's good to be flexible in our strategies. Like they do not like want, like again, like they do not want you to have events on campuses, certain places. There are other venues that you can still hold activities, and you still hold things that you can do, and still talk and invite the people that, subhanAllah, that they want to listen and they will still want to learn. So that's, but again, if there are students, when we say international students, it is okay at this moment, and I'm not saying they're backing off, it's just like to stand behind the lines. It's like, don't just, this is a strategy. Remember, this is something that even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba did, Khalid ibn al-Walid did, when he saw there's an army, a huge army in front of me, like this is really, it's gonna kill every single Muslim soldier here, he just retreated, right? So, but it was in a tactical, strategical way that he went back and he fought when he was ready. So look at the circumstances, the environment, adjust your plans, fix it, the wording sometimes, and then it just like still be active, still speak the truth, but it just like really cautiously. It's like very careful. Don't joke. Don't say words that even joking with someone that sometimes you might think, oh, this is someone who understands. Sometimes some jokes, some words could be manipulated too easily. And then, subhanAllah, don't give anyone a reason is like kind of to manipulate your words in a negative way. And it's like you say, that person said that, that person did that. You see? So that's like, again, we are careful with the words that we say, careful with our activities. It's okay to readjust. It's okay to change even leadership. If someone like kind of, yes, maybe someone is the truth born here, is easier for them to deal with these activities rather than international students. So just be number one, make sure like you are safe, you are okay, and stick to the groups. And it's like kind of honestly, that's again for personal safety. Is like even when you're walking on campus or something like that, make sure you're always in groups. Make sure to have allies on campus from the staff, from the faculty. Make sure that like the people over there, they see you as really good people. We're not troublemakers. So it's just like those allies, usually they will also provide you support. Yes, our ally, our wali is Allah, definitely. We're like, alhamdulillah. But still, these allies, like subhanAllah, can help us. Allah will help us through these people. So find these allies on campus. And then always stay connected, like to, when we say, I think this is the name of it, like American Palestinian Legal Fund. I'll get you the name right. Like these are like a bunch of lawyers, like really good, and that's their job, is to help like the people, especially Palestinian on campuses. Maybe you know about them. So, but it's like stay connected and still constantly consulting with them, or anyone who's willing to help you, the kind of from the law, like kind of sector. So, but don't be scared, by the way. It is like subhanallah, I mean, alhamdulillah, the truth will prevail, but like it is not easy. That's something, a struggle that, the prophet, like the speaking the truth. That's why when we say what we're doing is the path or the job that the prophets did, and it was never easy, but we all know the end, we all know the result, subhanallah. And again, on the very personal level, if you feel at some point you yourself are very overwhelmed, very emotionally exhausted, it's okay. It is understandable, because it is not an easy thing. So if you feel like you want to take a break, a day, a week, or something like that, I just want to refresh and go back, it is okay. That's, I remember even my experience, like when I say, when that soldier, like when I felt like, oh my God, my son, I got scared. It is okay. It's a normal feeling. It's like we're all humans. That's what I learned. So if you feel like you're overwhelmed, it is okay. And don't think like you could carry this load alone. It just talk to your friends, talk to, like, and take a break, do something, and then move on. Then we say in Arabic, istirahatul muharib is the break of, I know it's a warrior, we're not in a war, but maybe a war with oppression, but it's just like, when we say, you just take something to take care of yourself, to be able to continue, because this is not an easy, subhanallah, task that you are doing. You're carrying, I would say, you as students, like, subhanallah, the burden of the nation on your shoulders. The truth is, like, the activism of the students is like really a beacon of light in this darkness, because it is a big responsibility for that. No, it is like the fight back also is going to be big. So you just be prepared. That's honestly what comes to my mind, is like, yeah, but tawakkalu ala Allah. Yeah.
In 2008-9, when we were organizing for Gaza, we could not have imagined that we would get to the point where the majority of Americans view Israel in a negative way. And that's what the recent polling data suggests.
Mhm.
We could not have imagined that the word genocide would be associated with Israel and Zionism the way it is today. We could not have imagined that we would have public figures and celebrities and mass movements all mobilized for Palestine the way it is today. We could not have ever imagined that there would be back-to-back end-to-end coverage on CNN, Fox News, and other channels about student organizing and student movements on campus for Palestine. I mean, this was all unimaginable to us. But all of these things have happened, and that is a sign that with persistence and a really powerful display of solidarity and movement building and organizing that the students are doing, that we can achieve what we want to achieve. And the fact that one of the first things that the US government did in the aftermath of October 7th was to issue resolutions and pass legislation to punish or to go after students, means that among the most effective things we can be doing in the United States to support Palestine is student organizing. They're so afraid of students talking about Palestine on campus. They're so afraid of professors teaching about Palestine on campus. And their main reason is because they're afraid of the objective truth. And the more we continue to persist that this truth needs to be spoken, that this truth needs to be heard, the more vicious their repression will be. But that doesn't stop people. And what they're not realizing is that the more they repress, the more powerful our movement becomes. The more people understand that this work needs to be done, and people start realizing, hey, like, I mean, I went on X today just to check out, what's happening. And there are conversations that are being had from just the average Americans, from right and left, both sides of the political spectrum. People are really questioning, why is it that Israel is supported in this way by the United States? Like, why are we so beholden politically to this one state and its viciousness? And this is a logical question to ask, especially after witnessing the last year and a half of genocide. And so I think where the movement is headed is a mainstreaming of Palestine in U.S. discourse as a rights-based struggle, as a decolonial struggle, akin to that of the anti-South Africa South African apartheid regime, akin to that of decolonial movements in history, past history, akin to that of the civil rights era, which we've seen a lot of important intellectuals and black figures make those analogies, especially in recent months with Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, The Message. And so there are a lot of things that are moving right now that the Zionists the Zionists know that the dam has broken, and they just keep trying to put their fingers to plug the hole, and they can't. It's gotten beyond them now. It's gone beyond them, and they're trying to use the top down repressive approach to basically eviscerate the Palestine movement in the United States. And the more they do that, the more angry people get, and the more active people get, and the more new recruits and members of our community join the work that's being done. And so these draconian and scare tactics that they're using are having the opposite effect. And this is something that I experienced myself. I mean, I was a member of the Irvine 11. I was arrested. I went through a year-long investigation. I went through trial. I was put on academic probation, et cetera, et cetera. And none of that made any of us who were going through it fear continuing or stop us from continuing the work for Palestine. And it definitely emboldened all the other students in our community to continue doing this work, because they realized that if the government's going after you, that means you're doing something right. If they're doing this much to stop you, that means you're effectively articulating a position that is shaking the empire to its core, and shaking this Zionist genocidal project to its core. And that's something that we must continue to do, because no matter what cost we pay for the work that we're doing, it is nothing in comparison to what the people of Gaza have paid to achieve their liberation. And so we have to, I mean, it's an obligation, it's a duty. And so I think our movement is moving towards a mainstreaming of Palestine. Our movement is moving towards cementing the position that Palestine is a cause that will effectively be among its sister and brother causes around the world of freedom and justice for people. I mean, it's calling into question this sort of contradiction that we commonly hear of American officials or liberal elites or others saying, we believe in democracy, freedom, and justice for all, but in reality they don't. I mean, it's calling all these contradictions out, and it's forcing people to address their own internal biases and racism in ways that, this reckoning has never taken place the way it's taking place now, especially with regards to Palestine. We had that George Floyd moment where the whole world was reckoning with its own anti-blackness and racism, but now we're dealing with the genocide in Gaza, and we're dealing with this reckoning that's taking place on a global level of not just race and racism, but also the demise of the international global order of human rights and law. And people are talking about empire in ways that we've never seen. People are talking about the United States and the way it controls so many facets of the world economy and the soft power that it exercises beyond the hard power of the military. And so these are things that are changing dynamics dramatically. I mean, Gaza has truly changed the world in ways that we haven't fully articulated yet, and it will take us many, many, many years to keep writing about what this moment meant, this rupture, historic rupture that just took place with the events in Gaza. And so I think this is uh, it's a difficult moment for us right now. I know a lot of people are worried. We were seeing our own friends and colleagues being abducted from the streets and being taken into deportation proceedings, and being pepper sprayed and beaten by campus police, and being suspended and expelled, some of them, and dealing with so much stuff, and dealing with criminal trials now because the police have arrested us. And so it's just a lot. There's a lot going on, and people are feeling tired sometimes, and maybe it's perhaps afraid. But I mean, honestly, like, what is all this? What is all this education for? what is all this work that we're doing for? Like, I ask myself this question all the time. I just had this conversation with a friend earlier this morning. It was like, a lot of us, we've worked so hard to become doctors and become engineers and become lawyers and whatever. And we're realizing that despite our success in that regard, the material success that we've achieved, one free Palestine tweet is getting people fired and ending their careers. And that just shows you that if that's possible, then you've never been accepted. I mean, you've never been truly integrated. You've never been allowed to build your own power, because if you don't have the power to say free Palestine on Facebook or Twitter, I mean, that just shows you really don't have any power. And that's something that a lot of people are waking up to, the reality that, simply getting our degrees and getting nice jobs to become middle managers of American empire isn't what we're trying to do. And we're trying to be something more than that. And I think that's where the movement is headed. It's actually going beyond Palestine now. It's really, what I mean mainstreaming. There's more people getting involved in discussing things more broadly that are going to be revolutionary in their outcomes. I hope, especially as we deal with, the fascist regime that we're dealing with here in the U.S. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those are just some broad thoughts about where we're headed.
What are your hopes for the future of Palestine, your children, and the next generation? And what is your advice to the students who are on the ground resisting for Palestine?
So I'll start by the advice to the students who are resisting for Palestine. You are resisting for a just cause. Whether you look at it from a humanitarian background or angle, or you look at it from a religious angle, this is the right cause to fight for. Being silent is something you will regret. Resisting is something you will never regret. And so, under all of the current difficult situation, especially within the universities, and students, either their visas provoked or deported, this is the ultimate sacrifice. Yes, we talk about martyrs in Palestine, but people also losing their student visa or being deported is also an ultimate form of sacrifice. And I know they are, but I would say that stick to the message. Don't be manipulated by people who would like to see you drifting from that message. Because, as I said, our cause is just talk about the cause. And that's definitely the advice. And I think, as I said,
As I said from the beginning, I mean, like at least we can do it's to speak out and keep the matter alive. Any other conflict, it died, but fortunately, the Palestinian conflict, because of the new young generation and the youngest keeping the occupation, or keeping what's happening in Palestine alive, but he's speaking about it and talking about it and keep reminding that this is the only occupation exists in the 20th century. There is no other occupation in the world. This occupation have been going for 85 years for now, and there is nobody is talking about it from government point of view or from big countries. But we are, as here in America, we have freedom of speech. We have to keep the resistance by keep talking about it, at least keep talking about it and educate the people about what's going on, because American people are good people and they don't know the real story. They hear from CNN and Fox, unfortunately, and they take in one side over the other and they don't know what's the real story. So I think our responsibility here in America to educate and teach and spread the knowledge so people know exactly what's going on. This is the kind of resistance we can do here by speaking about what's going on in Palestine.
If you as a human being are watching what is taking place in Gaza, would you accept what is happening to the people of Gaza to happen to you? At a very fundamental level. Let's say that you are an individual who lives in a place that has been brutally occupied for almost 8 decades. That your family has been living under siege for 17 years. You've seen nothing but destruction and starvation and war and attacks by the most powerful militaries in the world. And you're in this situation now where you're living with your children in a building. You have no air defense. You have no army to defend you. You have no one coming to your aid, and you're just praying. You're praying that not that you don't get bombed only. You're praying that if you do get bombed, that everyone dies at once, so that you don't have to bear the suffering of losing your entire family. Is that something that you would accept for yourself? That's a question that I ask for a lot of people when fundamentally, what as human beings, like, is this something we would accept for ourselves? And there are sick and depraved people who are out there online who are saying, and this is probably, you probably came across this in the last 24 hours, people say that it's justified to kill 1 million Palestinian kids. It's justified to kill as many kids as necessary in order to eradicate Hamas or whatever they're trying to say. And these are ignorant people. I mean, they're not just ignorant, they're evil, they're despicable, because they would not accept that for themselves. They would not accept that for their own society. That living in the United States, another country comes and says, it doesn't matter how many kids we kill in bombing America, we need to eliminate the Trump administration or eliminate the U.S. government. Imagine this line of logic that we have being right now used to justify the war crimes against us. And these are things that I think we could all connect on. These are all things that we should all be able to appreciate the gravity of the situation by looking at ourselves and thinking about what it is that we would accept for ourselves. And if it's not something that we would accept for ourselves, then we should definitely not accept it for the people of Gaza, who have been suffering now for not just the past 18 months of genocide, but also the past 18 years of siege.
First, I would say to the Muslim students is like our intention. Like, remember to renew and refresh our intention. We are doing this for the sake of Allah. And what do I mean by that? It's one important kind of principle in Islam is we help the oppressed, and the oppressed, be it a Muslim or not Muslim. So we are doing like, you are like really following or establishing one of the biggest, like I would say, most important principles in Islam, is to help the oppressed. Like, so, and that is like, imagine the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then also for the non-Muslim students, like we say, who are joining this, they are our brothers and sisters in humanity. And humanity really is what unites all of us in this aspect. And then what is a human? A human is like, when, that's like how I see it, is like, I see myself as a human. I'm a dignified, like, human living on earth, that I deserve to live in dignity, which means like the self-worth, the freedom of like to express myself, to express my identity, to express my beliefs, my faith, and all of that without fear, without persecution, a fear of persecution of all of that. So I feel that for myself, and I feel it for others equally. So like, that's when I say they are our brothers and sisters in humanity. And for this to happen, that's when we always remember there is usually going to be really a conflict, a fight in between good and evil, because the evil, usually they're the ones who want to take all these benefits to themselves only. Whereas the good side, we want it for everyone equally, no difference, regardless of faith, race, ethnicity, all of that. We want it equal to everyone. So this is not an easy fight, but it is worth the effort that we are putting, because it will bring happiness, and I would say a dignified happiness to everyone. So all of us, we will enjoy this, because if we don't do our part, evil will spread even more and more, right? And then remember this, that's like I really want everyone to remember. When we speak about darkness and light, what is darkness? Is the absence of light. So we want our absence there to push the darkness away. We are the light. We are the ones who are defending the rights of humans and the humanity and justice and equity and all of that. So the light is stronger than the darkness because the darkness is nothing. We are the light. We bring, subhanallah, this justice to the world. So, but it's not easy. But like when I say victory is in our hands. It's just like we have to continue doing what we're doing, remembering that this benefits not only the truth Palestinians, it's humanity. This is a failure for humanity if we don't help them. You don't have to be really, I once read this on a protester, like kind of a sign, is like, you don't have to be Palestinian to help the Palestinians, you just simply have to be human. So we are practicing our humanity when we are doing like this task. And yes, the light will defeat the darkness, and there is no light, there is no night forever. The sunlight will always come. So, but remember, before the sunlight comes, it's the darkest part of the night. We are maybe here in the darkest part of the night, and the sun is shining soon. Our light is shining soon. So don't give up, move on, and Allah is aware of everything, looking at our actions. And then, inshallah, he's supporting us. He's not like ignoring us. He's supporting us. But his way, we have to trust just the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continue.
And this is going to be also directed to the students here at UCSD or students in San Diego as a whole. I wanted really to thank you for all the great work you're doing. All the change in public opinion was created through the younger generation, specifically, was created through the colleges and universities. And so thank you for all your work.